Hey, Brian, it is so good to see you. I've got
Same here.
a doozy of a topic I want to go over with you today. How are you, man?
I'm doing well. This is a topic that's long overdue to be discussed because it's about outsourcing, contact center outsourcing. And I've been on the outsourcing side, and now this is a little bit of like the confession, this is really what's kind of broken on
Wow.
that side. But as always, I have good news and I have solutions.
Okay. Well, I don't know that I have solutions, but you know, I like the truth. And so today I want to just have the unbanished truth about outsourcing without judgment.
Fair
And
enough.
I want to come at this from the perspective of someone who has been an outsourcing customer many years. So let me back up a little bit. Um,
Hmm.
it's sometimes called business process outsourcing. And in general, it's when
Yeah.
the company decides, for whatever reason, that they have this job function, in this case, a call center, a contact center, customer service, and that they've
Yeah.
decided for whatever reason that they don't want to be in the business of doing that work or as much of it. And so they would like a company who all they do is run call centers. And they'll say, you look after my customers. So for
Hmm.
today's topic, we're going to focus on the call center or contact center example. So what we're talking about here is company decides I want to take my customer inquiries and then have another company answer those calls on my behalf or those emails. And to the end customer, if you're listening to this, when you pick up the phone and you call your favorite brands, well, the person on the other end, right, may not actually work for DirecTV or work for
Yeah.
HBO. They are, and they may be in a different country or maybe domestic. Did I do a good, summary of?
I
Okay.
think that is a thorough job of what contact center outsourcing is.
You might be wondering, if you're new to this deal, like, why would someone want somebody else to take their phone calls? Right? Well, then I would say to you, why do you put your children in daycare or hire nannies? I kid.
Okay. Okay.
but the idea here is some companies, they tell themselves all kinds of stories of why they do it. Oh, we're not that good at it. It's not our core competency. They tell us about their stories. But I would say for most, if you give them all truth serum, the reason they're
Hmm.
doing this is they have a theory of the case that it's going to cost less to
Yeah.
have somebody else do this because they've gained all the efficiencies from running call centers. Hey, if we did this ourselves, it's going to
Hmm.
cost us $10 million. But if we sent it to this company, because they have all this efficiency and all the smarter ways of doing this, it'll cost us $7 million. So we would
Yeah.
like to save the $3 million. Thank you very much.
Yeah. With labor arbitrage, if it's outside of the country, it gets even cheaper. And there you go.
Exactly. Hey, we want to save money on outsourcing to India, Philippines, but we don't have the expertise. We'll pay them a little bit premium. Exactly. We are going to do it here. Now, let me now also say the other side of it. The biggest part of the story, these companies, and by the way, I am these companies. I've hired outsourcing. It was a big part of my job for almost a decade. One of the other things we tell ourselves is there will be no degradation of service by doing this outsourcing. So, in other words,
Yeah.
the
Certainly.
daycare will love my kids exactly the way I love them. They would lay their lives down for them. That's the
Okay.
other story that we tell ourselves. Okay, I would like you then to now go tell me the motivation for BPO companies, in the early stage when they reach out
Yeah.
to me.
Yes.
What stories are they telling themselves when they're like, "Hey, Amos, I would like to take over this thing for you." Share with the audience what is like on the other side.
Yeah. What it's like on the other side, unfortunately, I would say that they're not always honest with themselves because it's like,
Neither is the company.
hey, we're the pitch is we're the experts.
Yep.
We're better at this than you are.
Yep.
We're going to have a better employee experience, which leads to a better customer experience. We're going to be much more efficient. There's all of these benefits to having us as a strategic partner to really drive costs down and revenue up for you. And as I said in my report last year, the Crisis and Contact Center Management, clients don't believe that anymore. And I call that the contact center outsourcing fallacy. It's not better.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, we kind of all know it's cheaper is the main driver.
Yeah, I mean, look, you've got to tell yourself a story, right? To,
Yeah.
I mean, yes, you tell yourself the story. I want to move forward in the deal, right? So I remember when I used to do this, I had now made the decision that I'm going to go outsource this part of the business, put all the
Yep.
motivations aside. Now, I can't exactly Google outsourcing companies because then I get 50,000 results.
I'm glad you said that because I was head of marketing for a few of these BPOs, and they're like, "Come on, it's search engine optimization. Like,
Right.
people don't search for multi-million-dollar projects just
No.
Googling."
No, I don't. So then I have two vehicles that I usually use, and I think most people who do this, they do the same thing. Number one is referral. So good old word of mouth, because I used to work at this place, or I know somebody tells me these guys know what they're doing, or I talk to someone, I do that. And then number two is some sort of bids process, in that they put out an RFP in a formal sense, or you go hire, which is kind of doing the same thing. You have these brokers who are like, we'll do the vetting for you. These are the methods I've used. But for today's deal, regardless of what it is, right? Let's put the referral one aside. Let's focus on the most common path, which is through some means, I now have a list of people who are invited to come wow me. So tell me what happens on the other side. So you are on the other side and you are on this list to come bid.
So you're excited to be on the list. It goes through sales and marketing is the process. And they have to fight for allowing the company to bid on it, because sometimes other departments and like operations like, no, we don't want, we want these perfect clients.
Why wouldn't operations want to bid on it?
Operations wants perfect clients.
Okay, well, right. So, give me an example. Give me an example of an imperfect.
They're going to pay really high prices. They're not going to make too many demands. It's going to be easy work to do. It's, low complexity, high volume, and I will make high margin.
I tended to not be very popular. So I was in the gift business, so flowers. So my demands were like, hey, listen, I need you to 10x your staff on Valentine's Day and Mother's Day, but only for 10 days. And at the end of those 10 days, I need you to go from 10x back to X. So I now see why some of the responses I get. So I take it the ops people were like, yeah, nope, let's stay the heck away from that. Sounds like a nightmare. Okay.
Well, and funny enough, we realized that we were on the opposite sides of that. And there was quite a discussion at the BPO I was at about, do we really want to take on this kind of business? And, that's a fair point. I mean, that kind of volume spikes, those are difficult. There's no doubt.
Okay, so now let's say the operations people, sales and marketing people, they come to an agreement. Yes, we're going to do this. So now what?
The interesting thing is the client, whether someone's helping them or not, usually has this process. Oh, here is the request for proposal, and you can ask, certain questions submitted by this time. We'll answer them. You give us a response, and then they have all these dates and timeline to a decision process, and then including we want you to launch on this date, this quantity. This process is almost entirely run by sales and marketing.
Huh. Okay. So it kind of makes sense. What I usually get back are pretty slides. One of my annoyances back then would be I would get the response, and it'll take me 5 pages to figure out if this company actually took phone calls, because it sounded like they cured cancer and were saving kittens from burning buildings. Like, this is our company. We feed the
Yeah.
homeless in Africa. We build wells. They do all of this.
Oh, that's funny. And
And then
it's just funny hearing, the honesty from the other side.
I'm sort of like, do you have people? I need 1,000 people to answer the phone calls on Valentine's Day, or we all get fired. Like, can you get to that?
Yeah.
And then it gets to that. And again, I'm just sharing with you how it looks on
Yes.
this side. It always seems to me like they're interested in selling me the thing I didn't ask for first and foremost. So like, like it's
I
like
wish I had you saying these things to a lot of the companies that I was working for. But go ahead.
like I again, this is a real life story. My
Mm-hmm.
problem is that for this Valentine's Day coming up, I literally need to 10x my population for a week and a half.
Yeah.
And then the proposal will start with, all right, we are building wells for, children in Africa, da da da. Like, I get to the point, and then I'm thinking, all right, here it comes. Oh, we are a BPO company. They're going to tell me about the 10x. Nope, 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 nope. We can actually build your IVR for you. We can improve your CSAT scores because we have these tools, we have these processes. And I'm kind
Yeah.
of like, can we get to and then eventually they get to what I have really asked. So help me understand, right? Like, is that all sales and marketing trying to upsell me, or what's going on there?
Yes. And really what it is, talking about these basics, we sound like everybody else. So we're just going to talk about something else
Okay.
and make it look like then it's better. It's a better story. And also you'll see these great case studies and everything like that. I had a boss who's like, every BPO has a great case study or few case studies, and they quote on everything. And it's like, you got to at least have them. At the end of the day, does it really mean you're going to do a better job? And that is that challenge. But I'll also go with, while we're on this proposal thing, from the client side, from the BPO looking at the client, like, everybody does this kind of the same thing, and we build our library of responses, and it's like, yep, that response, that question, yep. And it's like, what does the client think they're going to get from asking all of these questions, getting back a document that's usually, over 100 pages,
Right.
then with appendices and all of these other things? And it's like, oh,
It's
really?
theater.
Did you need all that?
It-
And is that going to
it-
be able to give you the information you need to make a decision? And then I see these on the client side, they have these big meetings and checklists and all
oh
these
yeah,
teams deciding
spreadsheets.
who's
been in there.
winning in all of this? And it's like, so you tell me about that.
Well, well, listen, in defense of the clients, this is a game of defense like anything else, right? Like you're trying to make sure you end up in a place where no one gets fired. I'm just telling you. So it's like,
Yep.
so it's a, well, procurement has all of these boxes we have to ship. We all got together in a room and we scored it
Yep.
on the spreadsheet that we all made up. And all of that is just a defense in case you suck, in case the outside. so then we can go, well, who could have known that they suck? Look at the scores, not just me.
Yeah.
Supply chain, IT, everyone said hands. You can't fire all of us. So, 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 so there's some of that. But I also think on the other side of it is when I was new at this, and I came from the outsourcers, I worked at
Yeah.
Convergence and I came, but even I was not on the client side. I was in an operator. So I was shielded from, I was running a site. So I also, there were just parts of things that I just didn't really know and appreciate. Right. So
Okay.
if you think about you know, the operations person's thinking about who's going to answer my call and for how much cost or what have you.
Yeah.
Then there was are they hiring child labor? And I go, I never crossed my mind that. And so like, here comes legal saying, well, if you're going to be outsourcing this to wherever, they need to check this box here that they comply
Yep.
with all, because we don't want to be on the news for. So there was a lot of kind of check the box and paperwork associated with it that were just, yep, let's CYA as they call it, right? Let's just make sure we're covered.
Yep.
But it then goes to the heart of it. So at the end of the day, I'm just going to tell you from my side. I've seen your proposal, seen the pretty decks. Sounds like Mother Teresa runs this place. Sounds like you offer other services I didn't even ask for. Good to know. But I feel like I am at a taco truck, and here you are telling me of how fantastic your seafood boil is, and I am not quite ready to go there. Right? Like
Yeah.
I am not going to be. Let's see how the tacos are first.
Yes.
Maybe I might look at your seafood boil. So I get around to the part of what I asked for.
Yep.
And you show me these beautiful pictures, happy agents talking to happy customers. And heck, there's even quotes from other people who have also put their children in this daycare and all the happy outcomes that they've gotten. And I go, fantastic. I want to go see this for myself. Right?
Oh, yeah.
And so on my site, and a lot of what I did were overseas. So we're going to be going to the Philippines, visiting multiple islands. So it'll be myself, some people from the operations team, get someone from technology, maybe some
Yep.
training, depending on we'll have a posse of people, and we all have our mission and things we are really focused on. And then we get on a plane and then we fly. Tell me what's happening on the other side. How are you preparing for this site visit?
Well, once again, this is still a sales and marketing driven process.
Aha. Okay.
And I've been around enough companies, I think I can generalize that the site, a lot of them do want the business because bonuses and other things, and but they're kind of a reluctant participant. And so what they got used to, and this is kind of the industry standard, is that'd be funny if we had somebody from operations in this discussion. That might be one of the things that we bring in sometime. But from their viewpoint, I always got the idea of, okay, yeah, they're going to come in and we'll show them this department, recruiting. We'll show them onboarding, training. We'll show them, here's what we got in IT, and we'll show them a few of the clients we got. And then we'll go to dinner at a good place. That is the concept of the site visit. But in sales and marketing, it's like, oh, no. We got to tell a story. And I think in the report that I mentioned earlier, I think I called it a facade. So we put the sales and marketing kind of puts this facade over, this is what this site is like, and this is why it's going to be so great for you. And you go early and you train people to say different things at different times. And, you go through that process. So there's a level of continuity,
Right.
that when it hits the site, it's not the, completely generic dog and pony show. So that's kind of what goes on behind the scenes. And never does operations really get into this idea of what is their business and how are we going to run their business.
It is interesting you say that, because I have been to, I am not exaggerating here, 50 of those dinners, if not more, because this may be
dinners, man.
they were phenomenal. Some of the best meals I've had. I mean, this maybe says a little more about me than I want to, but we turned over a lot of outsourcers every single year. So there was not a year that I was not shopping for new ones. Sometimes I fired them, sometimes they fired me.
Yep.
And so by the time I'm 2 years into this, you're jaded from all. I don't even read just so you know, those of you listening, I don't even read the front of your proposal anymore. I skip all the way to where's the thing I asked for? How much does it cost? How are you? What's your staffing plan? And that's all
locations and price. Yep.
Because I got that. Okay, so we have this dog and pony show. And I always feel, I mean, I get it, right? Because I'm a contact center person. I get this. These are the best and the brightest and all of that. And I was more concerned with, particularly when I was overseas, like, where is the actual place? And then I would get into questions because I know, my team cared about, like, you're working with our competitor. Are they on the same floor? Like little operational logistics things. And we were always in this chicken and the egg place where, and I want you to opine a little bit about this, is they always hid behind everything here is just theoretical, Moss, until we get into a contract. I cannot tell you this is your site. I cannot, right? So like, I can't commit too much, but yes, hypothetically, you will be in a place like this. Well, yes, hypothetically. Hey, am I going to get that? I really like that operator. That gentleman who took us to dinner or who showed us around, can he or she be on my account? Well, possibly, but sign here. And I'm like, well, so tell me a little bit about that dance where the site visit, at least for me, very quickly you learned it was not representative at all. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but it wasn't meant to say, hey, we've thought about you. We're going to put you here. We're going to put your thing here. And by the way, here's this gentleman. He's going to be running your site. This lady's going to be running it was always, these are our fine people, which I knew to meant these are our best people. But are you going to staff the best people on my team?
Yeah, it was a constant question. Once again, this is a sales and marketing driven thing. How much does operations want to commit on that side? Because they always want to show you the best people. And those best people are the best people doing a great job on other accounts.
Correct.
And you're not going to get those people. Plain and simple, because they're in demand unless you're a really important client and all of those other things. And it's that negotiation. And usually what you try and bring is you have some kind of operations executive or solutions person who might go on the trip and be like, oh yeah, I'm kind of the corporate representative of operations and all of that. And
Right.
still we found out it's like, well, that all right, this may report up to you or whatever, but you're not even going to be involved. And then when you have the client sitting around asking people, what are you going to do about this if this happens and this and this and this? And everybody's like, I don't want to say or do anything. Like, I don't know. We haven't gotten to that stage yet. We have to make sure you sign a contract and then we'll talk about launch.
Okay. So I want to get to this part because this is the part that I want to be fair here. We committed to the truth, which is what I'm all about. And so we're going to spill it all out. I'm glad you said that because when it's now time we want to do a contract and launch this thing. Hey, we want to consummate this relationship.
Yep.
Let me now give you what goes on into my head. I am now worried about bait and switch. I have gone from, you know how in the beginning I lied to myself about how this wasn't about just money. You guys are better at this and that. After a site visit, I get real about what the heck I am doing. Like I sober up and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is not my site. Even in their best case thing they've just shown to me. And I think about what it is actually working for me. In this case, at Teleflora and the companies I worked for. And I'm like, yeah, this is not like for like at all. And when I get concerned, what do I start doing? I start to protect myself. So I now start to put together a proposal that is about sticks and carrots. I no longer have the deep trust and all the honeymoon is gone. All the stuff you said about how you're going to, I'm no longer buying it. And if you're listening to this and you're on the client side, you know I am right. And if you think I am wrong, just go read the contract you wrote. The contract doesn't say, when in doubt, take care of the customer. It says, no, if your handle time goes above this range, I'm going to pay you less. Like it becomes very, very clear to me. I need to play on my daycare example. I now want live camera feeds to make sure you are not abusing my children in this daycare. I now want all these reports and I want all of these things. And it's mostly sticks, but to be fair, occasionally there's some carrots that I almost that says, all right, if you perform at this level, I'll pay even a little bit more of a premium. That's what happens on my end. What's going on the other side of this as you are now getting this proposal from me on what this terms of this relationship should look like?
Yeah. Still, once again, mostly driven by sales and marketing. And it's about closing the deal.
Okay.
So then, now this isn't based upon a good working relationship. This is now, okay, the clients come back and they want all of these stipulations, all these things in the contract and the T's and C's, and you go through all of that, and it's sales, really trying to push this through, and where you have then a lot of other people who, with legal and other things like and operations, like no, we can't agree to that. It can get contentious and all of those other things. And it's funny because ultimately what's happened is, from what you just described, it's like that now then on both sides. We don't trust the client doesn't trust us, and so we're going to dive into the contract. and have the contract be what is really driving the relationship. And it's mostly risk averse, both
That's right.
sides. It's not about, hey, we're going to do a great job. It's how do we make sure things aren't horrible for either side?
I am at least, I feel a tiny bit better that it's mutual, that it's a Mexican standoff in that I'm pointing my guns at you, you're pointing them at me, and we have mutual assurance.
Yeah. Well, but here's another thing I'll bring up from the outsourcer side is the client is always very optimistic about their timeline, including decision timeline, with all of these things going on. And you'll continue to see companies outsource on a regular basis. I always wanted to ask, do you ever hit your decision date? Have you ever?
Nope.
But the launch date doesn't change, but their decision date does.
Absolutely.
And then it's like, oh, launch time. We needed this much time. Are you still willing to sign the deal? You better be, because everybody's brought you down that far. Sales and marketing and the company's like, well, BPO's like, yes. And then it transitions to a group head who had almost no involvement prior with all of this mess.
And that's where I want to go, because I know you are a solutions oriented guy. I'm getting better at that, although that's not my instincts. I'm kind of here to just call out the problem most days. So we get through all of that. We sign this contract, we get the lawyers, and then we're now into launching. Okay, I need these 5,000 people live in 6 weeks. And then I meet a whole group of strangers I've never talked to before. They all show up, and now they're my deal. And there's an onboarding deal. We're translating all those great friends I had who were calling me all the time, taking me to dinner. Gone. There's like one or two people left from the original Finn who are sort of kind of there, but most of my interactions are with these new people. Fine. So we now go through the launch process. I really want to then pause there and see if we can do a go back to how we might fix some of this, and say, I'll just tell you my beef about the launch process, and you can kind of respond. So one, I've got these strangers that I'm sort of dealing with. Nothing ever goes right. The first time, because they say they've compared notes, but they miss so many nuances. They don't have access to the contract. I've run into where it's like, I have carved out a thing that, hey, they're not gonna, and this person is arguing with me, and I don't want to be that guy. And I'm like, hey, yeah, we did. Really? We don't usually do that. Yeah, you did. So it's a lot of who's on first. And I've got this new person who is my go-to person now, because the person who sold it to me, I don't know, has better things to do. So now we're going through all of that. And then it's a whole relearning. And from this point on, I am thanking God I put all of those provisions into the deal. I'm glad we signed the prenup, because I am getting nervous of how this will work. So love your reaction there. And I do want to go back to how might we fix this for both sides?
Yes. Well, so I'll start with that launch process. The salesperson typically in most BPOs sells. And it's as soon as it's sold, they're on to something else. Marketing's just in the background, and great. You move on and go try and sell a different client. So what happens is then it goes to operations, and no one has really negotiated that relationship or really established that relationship well on either side. And it's more of an introduction, is what you said. Operations is like, well, here's what we do. And the client's like, well, here's what I was sold.
Right.
And it's like, okay, we're both stuck with this. And what do people typically do? They don't get along. That's not a good way to start it off. And with, if it's a shortened time on launch and other things weren't coordinated and communicated well, launch goes poorly. Typically, operations is trying to recover from a bad launch, and the client is upset. So even if you get through those first 90 days or 180 days and you get to some level of stability, what kind of relationship do you have?
Right.
It's not based on trust. That all being said, and then I'll even take, one last step is, so then when you have that kind of relationship and the client's like, hey, I want to change this. I want to change that. I want to do this. What is operations' number one goal? It's not to make the client happy. I mean, that's kind of like the bad news, everybody. The operations department
Wait a second.
at
The
an
people who are actually
outsourcer,
taking the calls and running the show, their job's not to make the client happy.
no,
Oh, okay. Go on.
their job is profitability.
Okay. Okay.
So, because once again, that's number one goal. And if that's not going well, we don't want this client. Go sales or whatever. Go get a
Find
new
it
client.
out.
So when you take a look at that, that's their number one goal. There's another interesting piece before we go back and now try and do this the right way. Is the client will say, well, they gave me this account manager, and I tell them, and I meet with them all the time and tell them what needs to change and what needs to get done, and nothing happens. Nothing's changed, and nothing's ever proactive. And as I've worked, consulting with clients, I ask a simple question like, do you know your account manager is from sales? They're not in operations. So you're talking to somebody who has no authority or really responsibility to do anything in operations to make those changes. So then there's this battle between, account management, that's from the sales side, with operations. My client's unhappy, and it's like, yeah, I don't want to hear about your client and everything else. And so if the client wants to do all these changes and everything else, it's like, so we've set this up in so many ways to fail on both sides.
Here. And the net impact is it's basically now an arranged marriage of sorts. One where it's like, I have to do this, then this is your business. I don't trust you. And, it's constant battle. It's business reviews are chaotic. I go to business reviews and I remember them, oh gosh, it was the outsourcers gently trying to defend themselves by telling me in the nicest possible way that it's really my fault as the client as to why
I'm sure that went over well.
things were deal.
Yeah.
And then I'm waving the contract and the sticks, and I'm like,
Yeah.
and you should have. Yes, I know I am a pain in the ass, but you signed up for this, and you should be doing this, and it's this. And then I go in and I go do side by sides. And it's just so obvious. Whoever I'm sitting next to has been told not to tell me any truths.
Yep.
Ask questions, hey, so, how many breaks do you get? Or like just innocent enough questions. And you just see the look in their eye, like, yeah, I'm not supposed to answer that one. Or I get the spin. So it's just a relationship that doesn't have to be this way. So,
Yes.
Brian, how do we even begin talking
All
about
right.
resolving this?
So, been able to do some things differently, or have worked with some people who've been able to do some things differently. and make some things work. But, given the current process, where I would make changes. So if I own the BPO, we'll go that way, and you can still be the client. Is number one, we talk about all the time in this industry about the customer experience and the agent experience or employee experience. Well, BPOs should really be focused on the client experience, because it's obvious if they were, things would be different. So that's number one. The mindset is I have to think about really them and their needs and everything else. I'll get my profitability if I'm successful with the client and their experience. There's that number one. Can I make that leap? Then, if I'm the BPO, I would turn around and say, okay, why would the client trust me? And the client wants to know that I can understand their business and operate effectively and all of those things. How can I do that if I don't know anything about their business? So, in this sales process, and without trying to sell value add and everything else, I want to go do an assessment on the current work. So I am going to make an investment with the client and say, I want your business, but this is best for both of us if we do it right and we work together. So I would like to come in, do assessment, and you'll learn some additional things about it. But for me, also, me, and with Fifth Talent, I'm also going to do this kind of assessment from an employee experience assessment too, about where are things, because as what we know in Fifth Talent, that employee experience, that agent experience, drives customer behavior, and what drives agent behavior is how they're managed. So knowing that is one of the biggest things, I don't want to just do a mystery shopper or whatever it is, or just do side by sides. I want to know really what are the real factors that drive success, and its management is huge. So how do you manage it? What's the philosophy? And then how can I take the best of that back to me? Which I may even do some interesting things on launch to have some of my maybe trainers or even supervisors come see you and sit at your site for a couple of days beforehand. And it's like, and people say, well, yeah, that seems like a good idea. It's like, people do it. So that's number one. And you're trying to get this relationship of how do we best work together? So you do need those people to meet with each other, the client and those individuals kind of doing the assessment. But there's a problem, because who does the assessment usually? What department is that? I mean, it's not operations.
No. It's the same sales and marketing people.
Yeah, or they have, a professional services group.
Third party or it's not.
Value add group who's going to come in and say, well, we can now figure out all the value add. This is something that a lot of people don't realize. It's a basic principle in the industry, but in outsourcing for BPOs, is if it doesn't come from operations, it's not going to have buy-in. Because if consultants come, or the professional services or somebody outside of operations goes and says, operations, here's all the things that you need to do to be great and better and all of that, and it's like,
what do you know?
No. Or it's like, oh yeah, sure, whatever, and it's like, I'm gonna go do whatever I want to do. So that's the other key, is how do you start to bring operations to the table early, And they're the ones who should be, I am going to anticipate that I am going to take on this client's business, and I'm going to be having this relationship with them for a long time. I want to be at the head of it. Even if sales and marketing is helping bringing all this together, the best sales approach is to have operations involved right from the beginning. And then when you get to the proposal, oh my gosh, you might actually have a proposal that talks about, here's what we're going to do for you and how.
Here. There's so much there I want to unpack.
Okay.
The first one is, it's never even come up the way the people are managed in the conversation and negotiating any BPO deals. And I've done,
Yeah, I know.
I've been on all sides of tens of millions of these things over the years. And that's interesting because I think those are all the anxieties that ends up being written as these clauses into the contract. But we never actually have the conversation of, hey, listen, what's your management philosophy? We just sort of assume a contact center or a call center is a call center is a call center. Meanwhile, if you're listening to this and you are a client, you know damn well you always knew that wasn't true. I can't.
Sorry, that's good.
There is just a market difference. So I remember I used to run a shop for Coca-Cola in the early 2000s. And Brian, you should visit this place. We built this thing in Tulsa. Touch screens. This is 06. Touch screens in the
Probably
room,
beautiful.
like Xbox in the break room. Like we were,
Yep.
and I would go visit the outsourcer. Like I was like, yeah, we're not at my shop anymore. That's just physical amenities, right? And then you kind of like, okay, well, they're trying to save money. Great. But I never bothered, not like the centers I ran were perfect, but I never bothered to ask, well, how do you manage people here? It just didn't, but there was, what you're saying now is so obvious because, well, that's why I wrote the things in the contract I wrote. Because I was instinctively like worrying, like, yeah, I'm not really sure. So that hits me between the eyes for sure. That this revolutionary thing you are saying, that is, hey, how about you bring the people who are going to be managing this people to the conversation early on, and we actually have an understanding of how do you manage, how do you run this operation, how are people treated, how do you coach, how do you develop any of that kind of thing. That's like step one, baby step, which is now just so obvious. And then the other thing you said, which would be music to the ears of every client who's listening to this, is, oh, and their answer is, well, this is our overall philosophy, but none of that matters to you because you, Mr. Client, are a special snowflake. You have your own kind of unique things. What we would instead want to do is understand your business.
Yes.
So, right? So that our answer really is, hey, we're going to do it the way you want.
Together, we can make this even better.
This seems so obvious. The other place I want to go, the other place I want to sort of then go is, I'm going to ask you this question. So having said all of this, not the status quo, but what is the differentiation between outsourcers? So like outside of costs and location and the kind of what would you, if there was a Brian BPO tomorrow, what would be your differentiation?
Oh, if it was like my company, I was the BPO and I got to decide what to differentiate on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I guess I should bring the audience a little bit up to speed about Fifth Talent and what we
Yes.
do, and what we discovered was the number one thing that impacts customer behavior, spend, loyalty, your profitability, is how agents are managed. So it's like, wait, so the supervisor impacts the customer? Yes, because the way the agent is managed, the agent wants to do a great job for the customer, but guess what? They're driven into all the process, all kind of the carrots and sticks, all the metrics and everything else, that it's like, if I'm going to outsource it, I'm going to force them to do it one way. And the agent usually can't be themselves. They can't make that human to human connection. And they find the job pretty miserable. They are disengaged. And therefore, the customer senses that. So does the agent. It's like, this is not a great conversation. And I don't feel like there's a lot of trust, and this isn't great. So everybody loses in that situation. Right. And what we call that is grind. When you are preventing somebody from actually helping customers, on a human level, that is grind. And that is what drives down performance and customer, behavior and all of those other things. But because what an agent really wants, and oddly enough, we all want it, is meaningful work. It's more important than pay, benefits, who I work for, great company to work for, all of those things. No, it comes down to, if I feel like this job is meaningful because I can really make a difference for other people, whether you're an accountant, whether you're a call center agent, doesn't matter. They have found that is, in this whole body of research called meaningful work, they found that that's the prime motivator. And the prime negative motivator, what we have discovered, is this thing called grind. And if you take those two factors, which we do in our survey, we found, and this was shocking when we found it, that intent to quit was influenced by those two factors more than everything else you can think of combined.
Wow.
So, we're in a people business. So why? So if I'm a BPO, right, I'm going to say I'm in the people business. And guess what? A lot of the process and technology and some of these way we write contracts and the way we structure things and the QA process and all that, and the scripting, that can get in the way. That can actually be grind and making things worse. So what I would say is, I differentiate on having great conversations and great interactions between agents who are human and customers who are human. And the big thing that impacts that is the human managing that agent. So you focus on that, you are going to get, I'm just going to say, that's 75% of the equation. And people are not only not doing that, they're causing more grind by, I'm gonna do analytics. I'm gonna figure out, what everybody should say and do. And everybody hates that.
The ironic part is the biggest cost driver in all of this is that agent attrition and the intent to quit. Like, you can shave a few bucks here, handle time, all of those things. If you get that right, you get everything spot on. And I asked you that question in a leading question, unplanned, and I love your answer. And I think that was going to lead us into part two I want to talk about, because in the next conversation we have, and I want to talk about why the missing opportunity, why not only are BPOs not focusing on the fin, the human to human connection, which is why they exist. I'm actually seeing them lean away from it and lead in with technology. I guess it's this twisted logic, which we're going to get to on in our next conversation. But more, I think as a as a former client, I learned a lot about what's happening on the other side. It was a bit of a therapy session.
I've been getting some insight on the other side also.
uh, and really, really, really love your solutions because they're not like impossible things to do. They are actually painfully obvious, but we keep looking for the answers elsewhere when the answer is, I think you said it, we're in the people business. I learned a lot today.
Yeah, so did I. So that was
Awesome.
a little cathartic too.
Awesome. Well, I'm looking forward to our next conversation. I'll see you soon.
Sounds good. Thanks, Amas.